Welcome back to Big Ideas. It's something we haven't touched on for about like a month and a half, which is very long. I'm joined here with Jack.
Hello, I am Jack.
Yeah.
I you guys may have heard me. I think last week was it when I recorded the first episode of the Dowcast.
Yeah. So Jack has put to any of our listeners, if we have any. Jack has put together this podcast where he reads through the Tao Te Ching and gives some analysis of it, and which is very enlightening.
Yes.
I enjoyed listening to it. I learned. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, but that episode was like about. I don't. It's in my room. I'm outside right now. So the first section was about like the word, right? Like creation or something. What
Yeah,
was it?
it was. Um, let's see if I actually remember. It was about
Let's Google it.
the nameless thing cannot be named. The eternal thing cannot be named. Basically,
Yeah.
communicating
Chapter
that
one. There we go.
in order to communicate with each other, we have to we miss the whole meaning of something because the eternal meaning of something can't be put into words. Which is it's a good primer for the rest of the Tao because the rest of it is very paradoxical. It's difficult to analyze, and so the whole purpose behind this, the whole impetus for
I
me was
see.
to go through and see how much I can actually get from it by looking at all the different versions of the translations and
Well, I'm
figure it
reading
out.
through it right now. I'm looking at the
Yeah.
text of chapter one. So it's like it is nameless. It is the origin of heaven and earth. So it's like the middle
Yeah.
path, right? The way. Interesting.
Yeah, that
Okay.
the way that can be, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao.
Yeah. It's
In order
something
to
that
tell you the
nameless.
way, you can't.
Yeah, it's like a spirit. It's something the individual defines himself. And I think this is a good segue to what we want to talk about speech. I think our second episode, we talked about the lines of free speech, like how free can free speech be? While that's something that's going to be a discussion that's never going to die, I think we should talk about how important is free speech in our society? Is free speech an important value? And in that sense, like how powerful are words, and why should we have free speech as a divine right, perhaps? I know Jack and I have, and before we started this podcast, Jack was like worried that we'd agree too much. I do agree with that. But I myself, I'm trying to formulate a stance on that. That yes, where does that line come in? Number one, but is free speech the most important thing? So I'll leave that to Jack to just speak on that, and I'll see if I can just interject on any parts that I feel I can add anywhere.
Okay, where to begin? As an American, I'm obligated by law to shill for the Constitution and for the First Amendment. And the reason why it's the first, the freedom of speech, press, to petition the government, and freedom of religious expression. All of those things are tied to the very individual being the person that they choose to be and expressing themselves in society the way they choose to be, which also includes petitioning the government and I guess standing against them. And that because the framers of the Constitution believed that that was an important part of the individual's expression, was to be able to speak against the government, be able to speak their ideas and have other people hear them. So, I mean, that's what they thought. And so I've been thinking about that a bit. And I guess my personal stance on rights in general is that they all stem from natural rights, life, liberty, property. And so I I see that free speech rights are a natural extension of the rights of liberty, the rights to
Right.
live the life that you want to live
Now
without hurting
now
others.
that's something I want to ask. Like, someone like Hobbes would say, well, no, life is, brutish and short, and humans are bound to be violent or barbaric if they're not controlled. And so, is there this need of this social contract? And in some societies, right, societies like more conservative societies, non-democratic societies, free
Mm.
speech is part of that social contract in the sense that you will give up your free speech to have that security or safety or whatever. So is that a violation of those natural rights, or is it natural for us to want to give up such a right in search for safety and security?
Okay, so I'm going to split my answer into two parts.
Yeah,
The
sure.
first part, you brought up how, Hobbes and that humans are naturally violent towards one another,
Mm,
which is true to some extent,
mm,
as all things are when
yeah.
you're talking about this issue. Um, the way that I see it is that government exists to protect the natural rights of the people
Yes.
and to be able to create a system that maybe with a few flaws, but that's okay. It's better than having no system. Um, have a system to protect those natural rights and enforce contracts and make sure that people are living the life that they want to live without too much encroachment. And,
Mm,
this is a bit of a change from my previous beliefs. Ever since reading Jordan Peterson, I've had the belief that it is natural for humans to want an order. Of course, you want to
right,
balance
right.
chaos and order in life. And so there's the chaos of living any life that you want. But the downside to that is sometimes people are going to be egoists and they'll be violent towards one
Mm,
another to suit their own needs. And of course, there's a downside to order. I mean, anyone who's studied the 20th century can tell you that. So having a balance between those two is absolutely necessary. So
mm.
that's my justification for the existence of a government to somewhat encroach on these rights, but ultimately try to their best to protect them, even if they can't do it perfectly.
Yeah.
And what you're saying about the more undemocratic societies that have part of their social contract to encroach on the rights of free speech in order to maintain the society, they are somewhat right in their formulation that if there is no free speech, then there isn't much unrest or dissent within their government.
Mm.
But at the same time, that's not good for the health of a society.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
if
of
people
course.
cannot communicate their grievances with the
Yes.
government, they
Yes.
cannot communicate their beliefs on how they can improve the government to better suit the
Precisely.
people,
Yes, I
then
agree.
it's not going to
I
be
agree with
represented.
that. I agree with that, that the importance of freedom of speech is not per se the importance of just uh, one person being able to speak their mind. I think that's just the what's that word? It's just a privilege, right? At that point, if you're just able to freely speak your mind. At the end of the day, the importance of free speech is for someone to be able to ensure that their standard of living is optimum to what they want it to be. Because if it's not, then they can express their grievances to the government or a higher authority. And that's the whole purpose, in my view, why freedom of speech is valuable. Now, we talked about natural rights. You talked, about life, liberty, property. While these are natural rights in the Western world, as they say, do you think it's a universal value? Do you think it ought to be a universal value? Because I had a conversation with a very strange person today.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
we talked about it earlier. I can't disclose too much, but this guy was
Mhm.
very odd. And he was saying like, "Oh, do you believe that cultures culminate into norms, and those norms play a part into how policies developed and how governments govern?" And you know, in my view, it's difficult to answer to satisfy the other. But in my personal view, I think these values ought to be universal. Because I think it's an excuse to say, oh, we have a dictatorship or an authoritarian government, whether it be in China or in Thailand, because it's just the cultural norms. I think that's an excuse. That's my view. So do you think they should be universal?
I do, because I've spent the better part of the last year trying to think of ways to give a rational proof for natural rights.
Yeah.
Like philosophical proof that
but why
you
is
can't.
it natural, number one, and two, why is it universal? Because
So
you know,
imagine
if cultures
you have,
are different and all that. Yeah.
yes.
Sorry, continue.
So imagine you have two individuals,
Yeah.
and they are the exact same in every possible way. If they're exactly equal to one another, then there is no logical reason why you should be able to treat them differently, or why one has the right to take the property of another or to kill the other. And if you were to change it up slightly, say one's black and one's white, then can you give a logical proof as to why, say, the black man should take the white man's property? You
No, of course
can't,
not. Yeah.
because there's no first principles that can back that up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the holes in this proof is that there's no first principles to get a logical proof from, but instead I opt for identifying how there is no logical proof for the converse of it. And so if you keep extrapolating, you know, one's a woman, one's another, and you have more people, then when can you decide that, okay, now it's okay to violate those rights if someone just wants to do that?
I mean, this brings up a very pertinent issue that's in Singapore right now. I will not share my views on it because it's a very sensitive topic. It's on Article 377A of the Singapore Constitution. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Jack.
I believe I may have heard of it, but refresh me.
It's the article in the Constitution which forbids and criminalizes sodomy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So, I remember.
You know, and now the whole debate, this Singapore society is just so divided on this issue. Because on one hand, they argue, oh, Singapore is not ready for it. We're a conservative society. But that's the problem. Because at the end of the day, it is someone's liberty, freedom, to decide what he or she wishes to do with his or her body, and how they wish to identify themselves, you know, as a sexual being. So, is such a response justified? That, you know, because it's a conservative society, we should not repeal it. You know, so that jumps into this. That brings in the discussion about whether these values are universal, and why do people reject it if it ought to be universal? Now, how do we persuade them to bring them in to believe, you know, that they should adopt them? I mean, you know, persuasion and making this something that people should be aware about. It's hard, but in my view, it's just got to do with how you educate the people. Because I think in Singapore, people just misunderstand the issue of 377A. Again, I'm not going to share my own views on it, but I'll hint that I am open to change. I want change. That's all. I think Singapore needs to do a lot more to work towards that. But the view is that, once Article 377A is repealed, hell's going to break loose. You know, gays are going to convert people, break the family, and the church in Singapore has been really on that, hounding that line. So why, if it's universal, do we reject it?
And yeah, this is a difficult
Yeah, it's difficult, right?
Situation, because these people they have a cultural understanding that leads them to believe that this kind of thing is wrong and shouldn't be allowed. And I think it's possible for them to keep their cultural perspective, but also to make sure that it's not encroaching on other people's rights. It's okay for them to believe in, the traditional family, one man, one woman, and to only engage in sexual activity like for the good of the family. If that's what they're interested in, then that's the way that they can live their life. But with Article 377A repealed, then other people, they're
So we looked back at the recording. It just cut us off right when we were talking about the whole sensitive stuff. We don't know if the government hacked us. I don't know. But following that conversation, we had like 15 minutes more of just really deep discussion on free speech, and it was just so good. Jack and I, when we pressed the stop button, we were like, oh, this was the best episode ever. But we can't prove that because we had technical difficulties. So, But we apologize. We'll just make this episode an exception, and we'll just admit our fault here. But we think that the topic was important. I think once I edit this, put this together, Jack and I will listen to the first bits again, and we'll kind of build off of that the next episode. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. We'll make that a promise.
So here we are at the end. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.